3 victims, 1 defendant. Not 4 victims, not any victims of the system, 3 real victims, 1 defendant. Alexandra Cruz, 22 years old, brutally attacked on Old Colony Ave in South Boston. Kaylee Ballantyne, 21 years old, brutally attacked and stabbed 57 Gate Street in South Boston. Amy Elizabeth Lord, forever 24 years old, the daughter of Cindy and Dennis Lord. For 24 years, they raised and loved their daughter. And then, on July 23, 2013, they were dealt the cruelest of blows. They had to hear the words that no parent should ever have to hear. After going missing, their daughter was gone, the victim of a brutal abduction, robbery, and murder. No more gym, no more job, no more family trips. Amy Lord, forever 24, will never walk down the aisle with her dad on her wedding day. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Because of one man, this defendant right here, Edwin J. Alemany. Because of this selfish man, Amy Lord is gone. He is not a victim in this trial, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a failure of that system. This is the culmination of a failed life, his life. Look at the records. Look at the mental health records. Give them their due consideration if you must. Look at the discharge summaries in those records. Look at what he says and contrast that with what professionals actually see and report in those records. Look at the Bournewood records, that window, 1999 to 2002. Consider what you see and what you don't see. And what you don't see, ladies and gentlemen, is any psychiatric admissions whatsoever from 2002 until he is arrested in 2003 and sent to the Bridgewater State Hospital. 2 separate admissions. 2 separate admissions following his arrest for stabbing Kaylee Ballantyne on July 24, 2013. The first admission, evaluation, discharge summary, no mental disease or defect for Edwin Alemany. August of 2013 to August 2014, second admission, Bridgewater State Hospital, 1-year period, no mental disease or defect for Edwin Alemany. Consider the diagnosis that you heard from Mr. Abelow closer in time to trial. What the defendant said, why he said it, and his motivation for doing so at the time. To Mr. Abelow, to no one else, going back to 1999, 1996, in the whole span of all of those records that are in evidence. To Mr. Abelow and no one else, a startling disclosure about abuse made only to Mr. Abelow. Mr. Abelow, his diagnosis that he testified to in this courtroom, a diagnosis missed by mental health professionals from 1999 to 2002, a diagnosis missed by mental health professionals at Bridgewater State Hospital from August 2013 to August in 2014. I would suggest to you that the diagnosis by Mr. Abelow was nothing more than him preparing that particular diagnosis to defend a courtroom conclusion, ladies and gentlemen. What the credible evidence suggests in this case is that the defendant was not suffering from a mental disease or defect at the time of these crimes. Not only does the evidence show that he had no mental disease or defect, it also shows, ladies and gentlemen, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he did have the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct and the substantial capacity to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law. It's been a long trial. Some of you started showing up at this courthouse about 3 weeks ago on May 18th, 2015, and we've covered a lot of ground in those 3 weeks. We've covered a lot of ground. Questions have been asked of more than 35 witnesses, and you've received well in excess of 300 exhibits during the course of the trial. You've now heard all of the evidence in what has been a full and fair trial for Mr. Alemany, in which he's been represented by skilled and experienced counsel, as he's entitled. Look at the evidence in the case, in the actions of this defendant. In my opening statement, I asked you, consider, I asked you then that I would be able to address you again in my closing argument, and at that time I would ask you to consider the evidence in the actions of this defendant. And I'm going to ask you to do that now and to hold him criminally responsible for what he did. We have to look at the evidence, and it starts with that morning, early morning on July 23rd of 2013, very early in the morning. How did he start his day? What he wants you to believe and what he actually said. You heard Mr. Denner talk about stressful events, about how he can't recall, somehow it triggers maybe some type of amnesia in a stressful event. The event involving Alexandra Cruz and Amy Lord early morning on July 23rd of 2013. Was that a stressful event? Those attacks? You heard his statement. Alexandra Cruz doing what she needed to do that day, to go to work like she usually did, to support her child. Walking to work on Old Colony Ave, alone, the first victim of a blitz attack. Beats her, strangles her, drags her into the Philtech parking lot. How he bullied and terrorized her, put her in fear, told her if she called the police, he'd come back and kill her, that he knew where she worked. But let's delve a little deeper into that attack. Let's delve a little deeper into the testimony and what you heard her say. Let's delve a little deeper into how she recognized the defendant, how she said their families grew up one street apart. That's how she recognized him. And she didn't actually recognize him that night immediately because she recalled him when he had much longer hair. And you received a photograph and evidence of Edwin J. Alemany with that longer hair. She recognized him. Their families knew each other, one street apart. I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that you can infer that there was possibly recognition on his behalf, too. And he made a conscious decision at that particular point in time. He didn't complete the act. He did not complete the act. He broke it off. Not only did he break it off, he apologized. Does that suggest to you that he could appreciate the wrongfulness of what he was doing at that time? You remember from Alexandra Cruz's testimony that he gave a name, that he said his name was Miguel. The apology, breaking off the attack. I would suggest to you no mental disease or defect, that the name Miguel was consciousness of guilt. That, ladies and gentlemen, like I said in my opening statement, and I'm going to ask you to consider through everything I say, argue, and show you on the monitor, is clarity of mind. Purpose and clarity of mind. How does he want you to believe he started his day that day?
Do you remember what you did Tuesday day before being dealt with Derek and my brother?
I swiped a little bit of the hangover off.
Yeah. And that was it.
Just put it in the house, clean and
How did you start your day off? I slept my hangover off. I was in the house eating and cleaning. We know that's not true. He has memory of it at that particular time. Later on, he has no memory of anything that happened that morning. Strategizing later in time, ladies and gentlemen. Strategizing. Making statements. Thinking it through for his own self-interest. How did Edwin Alemany start his day? 5:15 and 25 seconds in front of the Bell's Market in South Boston. In the area, Alexandra Cruz already having been attacked. A predator loose on the streets of South Boston. How did Amy Lord's day start that day? Getting ready for the gym. Getting up, excited to meet a friend. They worked out the night before. Getting ready to go to the gym at about 5:40 in the morning when she was going to catch that number 9 bus to meet her friend. Walking just up the street. Amy Lord had no idea of the danger that was lurking on Dorchester Street that morning. She had no idea. And when the opportunity presented itself, this predator pounced with ferocity. "5:38 a.m., 124 Dorchester Street. Amy Lord, abducted. A forceful abduction, ladies and gentlemen, in a small area. Trauma inflicted on her. Her contact lens left on the stairs. Her face battered. Where was it going to go from there, ladies and gentlemen? Where was it going to go from there? What was Mr. Alemany's plan on July 23rd of 2013? Is this evidence the route that was mapped out, that's mapped out here, the locations that are mapped out on exhibit number 24? Is that route evidence of someone who was wandering around in a mindless daze, who didn't know what they were doing? Or is that route the execution of a plan? And that plan included robbing Amy Lord, driving her to location, to location, to location, to location, and forcing her to drain her bank account. That's not mental disease or defect, ladies and gentlemen. That's not lack of criminal responsibility. That's a plan, that's purpose, that's clarity of mind. There was one person driving. Amy Lord was not driving that car. You know that from the stills you're about to see from the Mount Washington Bank, from the Metro Credit Union, and you know that because at the other 3 banks, she's the one that got out of the car. He was acting deliberately, with purpose, clarity of mind. You saw those locations, ladies and gentlemen. You can't get there by accident. You just can't do it. Someone is running the show, and you know who's running it by the look on Amy Lord's face from the stills and the videos that you saw. His plan, ladies and gentlemen, starting that morning, was to drive her to each and every location. Frustration, lack of a job, lack of income, inability to provide for his daughter, inability to provide for himself. That was all ending on July 23rd of 2013. And it was happening at Amy Lord's expense. What started at the Mount Washington Bank was felony murder, ladies and gentlemen. Amy Lord, the culmination of those robberies, brutally murdered in the Stony Brook Reservation in the Hyde Park section of Boston. The court's going to instruct you on felony murder. I'm not going to talk a lot about it now. But armed robbery while masked on 2 of these offenses. Armed robbery at 2 others. The car, another armed robbery. Mount Washington Bank. Mount Washington Bank, the first stop on the terror ride in this horror story. What is significant about exhibit number 46, ladies and gentlemen? What is significant about this photograph? A couple of things. Number one, you see the trauma to Amy Lord's left eye. For purposes of Mr. Alemany, more significantly, ladies and gentlemen, is the concealing of the face. This is not lack of criminal responsibility. That's consciousness of guilt. That's acting with clarity of mind. That's acting with purpose. Let me conceal my face in a location where I know that there are going to be cameras. Let me conceal my face so I don't get caught, because I know there's going to be a camera there. He appreciates the wrongfulness, ladies and gentlemen, of what he's doing right there. The Bridgewater State Hospital records, no mental disease or defect. Dr. Kelly's opinion, no mental disease or defect. He's aware in taking precautions not to get caught. He has a strategy. He has a plan. He's executing that plan. Clarity of mind, not lack of criminal responsibility. Metro Credit Union, Exhibit 66. Edwin Alemany. Again, drive-up ATM, concealing his face. Same argument, ladies and gentlemen. He knows what he's doing. He's appreciating the wrongfulness. He's acting in his own self-interest, self-preservation. I'm not going to get taped on this. I'm not going to get caught. I'm not going to get recorded. How am I not going to get recorded? I'm not going to get recorded because I'm going to cover my face. So if anyone pulls this video, they're not going to see Edwin Alemany. Not lack of criminal responsibility, acting with purpose and clarity of mind. Exhibit 25, Amy Lord, the fear he puts her in. The beating he's already started to inflict, which pales in comparison to what's coming in about an hour. Not lack of criminal responsibility. He has a plan. He's carrying out that plan. He's at his second location on the route of 5 banks. And what's he want? He wants something for himself, and that's Amy Lord's money. You've seen the signatures in the upper 2 left-hand corners. Exhibits 28, 29, and 30, ladies and gentlemen. Amy Lord at the Bank of America, at the Sovereign Bank, and at the Citizens Bank. Identified by her mother, Cindy Lord. Why did Cindy Lord have to be in that position? Why was she put in a position where she had to come into Suffolk Superior Court and identify her daughter on those stills from those banks? It was this defendant's plan, his actions, what he did that day. No mental disease or defect, no psychiatric admissions from 2002 to 2013, acting with clarity of mind and with a purpose. If I say it once, I need to say it 100 times in this closing, ladies and gentlemen. What is he doing at these 3 banks? What is he doing here? He's not getting out of the bank, out of the car, excuse me. He's not getting out of the car. He's forcing her to get out of the car. You're thinking to yourself, she's out of the car. You're thinking to yourself, Amy, run. Just run. Just go. It's so easy. No one will catch you. He won't catch you. Imagine, if you will, just think of the fear he put her in that vestibule. Think about Alexandra Cruz. Think about her for a second in the fear he put her in. That assault took place on the street, and he put her in such fear, threatening to kill her, saying, I know where you were, I will come back and kill you. She was so distraught that she wouldn't even want to call the police. She didn't call the police. Don't speculate, ladies and gentlemen. You can reasonably infer the fear that he put into Amy Lord and the terror that he put her in, to the extent where on 3 successive stops she got out of that car and was paralyzed by that fear. Don't blame her for not running. She's not the victim. She's the victim. He's not the victim. He's the defendant. "13 minutes in that vestibule at 124A Dorchester Street, ladies and gentlemen. 13 minutes. Where are they going? Where is Edwin J. Alemany going after the Citizens Bank? Where is Mr. Alemany going? Is he going to a random place to commit a random crime? No. Edwin J. Alemany is going somewhere that he's very familiar with, the Stony Brook Reservation. You know he's familiar with that area of the city because he winds up coming back there later that day. Clarity of mind, purpose, execution of a plan, not a lack of criminal responsibility. No mental disease or defect, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Alemany knew exactly what he was doing on July 23rd, 2013. Why that area? Why the Stony Brook Reservation? Was he familiar with the Stony Brook Reservation? Yes, he was. You heard that from Mr. Cavalloni and Mr. Lee. They had been in the Stony Brook Reservation drinking on prior occasions when they were younger. He knew all about the Stony Brook Reservation. You know all about the Stony Brook Reservation. You know all about Bold Knot Path now. You know how that's an isolated area. "7:05 a.m. July 23rd, 2013, ladies and gentlemen. Amy Lord's last ride. Amy Lord's last ride. And who's driving? Him. And where are they going? The Stony Brook Reservation. Note the time, 7:05. Note the time on the stills, on the video, when you go up to deliberate and look at the video and look at the stills from the Mount Washington Bank. Think about the execution to make 5 stops, either 5 withdrawals or attempted withdrawals at those 5 separate and distinct locations. This man acting with purpose and with clarity of mind. It is the mantra of this case, ladies and gentlemen. The mantra. It's not lack of criminal responsibility. He knows what he's doing. You've been there. You've seen it. Coming in from Gordon Ave, Exhibit 33, Henneking Parkway, right to the gate, that small parking lot where you got off the bus a couple of weeks ago. Look at the area. Remember the area. Into the reservation he took her, isolated. His appreciation for the isolation of that area, his knowledge of that area. Is that a mistake? Is that just some random location that was picked up that somehow he wound up there that day? No, that's functioning. That's functioning at a level, a high level, I would suggest. Because now he's consummated the robbery. There's no more money to be had. Not a lack of criminal responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, but now we're into something different. Now we're into deliberate premeditation. Deliberate premeditation, which His Honor will instruct you on thoroughly in a little while. And it doesn't have to take place over hours. Doesn't even have to be minutes. It can be seconds. And he was planning. And that's why they were going to the Stony Brook Reservation. This was a plan, ladies and gentlemen. This wasn't random. This wasn't the culmination of years of serious psychiatric illness. Edwin Alemany knew exactly what he was doing that day. Was he a professional killer? No. Was he sloppy? Yes. Just think back to the criteria for antisocial personality disorder that Dr. Kelly read to you, the last question I asked him. It fits him like a glove, every one of those criteria. It's his life story. It's his life story. Into the reservation to Bold Knob Path. Not a couple steps in, ladies and gentlemen, but several hundred feet into Stony Brook, onto the paved path, up to Bold Knob Path, and deeper where there's more isolation. Collectively, you 15 fair and impartial jurors walked Amy Lord's last walk, and you stood in the very spot where her life ended, at the hands of Edwin J. Alemany. What he could no longer get in U.S. currency, he was looking to take out now in her flesh. Okay? That's what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen. This is not lack of criminal responsibility. Okay? This is now deliberate premeditation. Okay? This is not, what he did to her is not a lack of criminal responsibility. Okay? It's not. What the judge is going to instruct you on, there's another word for it, and it's called murder with extreme atrocity or cruelty. Listen carefully, as I know you will when the judge instructs you. That's what's going on here. And you know now that this murder was committed with extreme atrocity or cruelty. You know now that it was done with deliberate premeditation. And you know that it was felony murder. And the judge will instruct you on all three of those theories. Let me give you some insight into how calculated and how cunning he was when they arrived at the Stony Brook Reservation. Let me give you some insight. Those sunglasses, the sunglasses. Do you think when they arrived at the Stony Brook Reservation, Amy Lord said to Mr. Alemany, "Hey, Edwin, wait 1 second. Let me put on my sunglasses so you can walk me up to Bold Knob Path. Let me do that." Of course not. Look at her eyes. In the area that he was familiar with, where if anyone did see her, if she was wearing those sunglasses, no one would notice the trauma that had already been inflicted on her eyes. Exhibit 50, look at her eyes, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the sunglasses. One of the lenses popped right out. I suggest to you, during the course of another savage assault that took place in the Stony Brook Reservation. That is not lack of criminal responsibility. That demonstrates thinking, execution, self-preservation, self-interest. I'm not going to get caught. If someone sees me up in here, I don't want any attention drawn to myself if I'm walking with this girl and she has 2 black eyes and she might be crying. Put the sunglasses on. Now walk. Now we'll go up to Bold Knob Path. Anatomy boards 201 and 204, exhibits 201 and 204. What is that? What is that you saw, ladies and gentlemen, that he did to this girl, to Amy Lord? What did he do to Amy Elizabeth Lord? What is that? One stab wound after another, all over her body. Okay? Not lack of criminal responsibility. We don't introduce these photos to shock you We don't bring the medical examiner in to describe these injuries to offend you. We do it to support our theory of murder in the first degree committed with extreme atrocity or cruelty. You listen carefully as Justice Gaziano instructs you on that theory of the law, and listen to the factors that you can assess and apply in determining whether this murder was committed with extreme atrocity and cruelty or cruelty. Multiple stab wounds, multiple fatal stab wounds. Dr. Anna McDonald's testimony describing in vivid and horrific detail the injuries inflicted on Amy Elizabeth Lord by Edwin J. Alemany on July 23rd of 2013. And what is Edwin Alemany doing for the rest of that day? Okay. Can't take care of himself? A person who can't take care of himself? Really? He took pretty good care of himself that day. Lottery tickets, phone, food, alcohol, even getting himself medical treatment. Is that the picture of someone who can't take care of themselves? You saw what he did, ladies and gentlemen. Extreme atrocity or cruelty, acting with purpose, acting with clarity of mind, finishing the job when he couldn't get what he wanted. And when he tried to rape her, and she fought back, that was the end. Where does he go from there? How does the rest of Edwin Alemany's day go? From there to the best of Boston, testimony of Jonathan Douglas Lee. Knew him for years. Okay? This is not a police officer investigating the case. This was the product of painstaking police work to canvass the upper end of Washington Street after looking at video cameras, to canvass the area after looking at video, and finding that needle in the haystack, Jonathan Douglas Lee. And what does Jonathan Douglas Lee come in here and tell you 15 jurors? That he's known him for years, not just a day or two, known him for years. Same old Edwin, not in the throes of psychosis, same old Edwin. Nothing different about him on the morning of July 23rd when he's coming from the Stony Brook Reservation in a black Jeep Cherokee with a sticker on the lower left-hand corner of the back windshield. In her car, same old Edwin. Bridgewater Records, a horrific crime. You want insight into Edwin Alemany? Look at those Bridgewater Records from 2013 to 2014. I never feel guilty. I have no remorse about anything. I never feel guilty. I have no remorse about anything. Same old Edwin. Does that have the ring of truth to it? Is that consistent with the medical records? There was nothing about Edwin Alemany's behavior that morning that was different compared to the many years that Jonathan Douglas Lee had known him. Nothing. More functioning, more planning, more purpose, more clarity of mind. I'm not going to get caught. Someone has seen me in her car. I've just killed her. I have to get rid of this car. How do I do that? I'm going to burn it. He's not charged with being a criminal mastermind, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? I'm going to burn it. 2 purchases of gasoline that day. One pumped by Mr. Buhaya, and the other he went and pumped himself. And I would suggest you can infer that he pumped it right into the back of the car. More planning, more purpose, complete the plan, operating with complete clarity of mind. Calculating, cunning. The beacon, right there, Christopher J. Burnham on that back windshield. Recall that tedious exercise I put you through looking at all that traffic video. Okay? If you believe, and you're the masters of the facts, if you believe that that's her car, the ability to drive all the way across the city from South Boston to Hyde Park in Rosendale and then all the way back. Mount Washington Bank, 6:04:27 a.m. Metro Credit, 6:11:40 a.m. Sovereign Bank at Columbia Road, 6:41:30 a.m. Gordon Ave, 7:05:23 a.m. Washington Street, 8 o'clock a.m. Logan Way, a very short distance from Sterling Square, where he set her car ablaze. He's come full circle. He's gone across the city and back, no problem at all. Not wandering, not dazed, not delusional, planning on doing what most criminals do, ladies and gentlemen. And what is that? Let me get rid of the incriminating evidence. Never found the hat. Never found the shirt. Okay? Car, total destruction. Total destruction. Total destruction of the car. Okay? By who? By who? The destroyer, right there. The destroyer of life. Okay? The destroyer of life, Amy Lord's life, is a destroyer of her property, too. Not a lack of criminal responsibility, acting with clarity of mind, acting with purpose. Okay? And selfishness, too, ladies and gentlemen. Knows what he did was wrong. Just totally blow out that car. What piece of evidence is possibly retrievable from that, outside of the samples they collected to say that there was gasoline residue found in those samples? Her personal property. Totally gone. Everything. Up in smoke, ladies and gentlemen. Again, think about it. What is he doing? He's getting rid of evidence. He's destroying evidence. Consciousness of guilt. You'll be instructed on that. Consciousness of guilt. Clarity of mind. Purpose. All the way throughout the day. All the way throughout the day. Divine Way to Sterling Square. Can't make it too hard on Edwin J. Alemany. Can't make it too hard on him. No. Far enough away from the house, but close enough to walk home. Okay? And close enough to walk home and close enough to take care of who? Close enough to take care of Edwin Alemany that morning. That's what he's going to do. And how is he going to do that? He's going to spend all of Amy Lord's hard-earned money. That's what he's going to do. And he's going to start doing that by buying lottery tickets at Tedeschi's. The selfish man. The clear-thinking man. Acting with purpose and clarity of mind. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to take care of me today. I'm going to spend some of my $960. My newfound money, my ill-gotten gains. That's what I'm going to do. Is it any coincidence that Sterling Square, he's captured on video at the Tedeschi's at 566 Dorchester Avenue, at Rotary Liquors and Rotary Variety, right around the corner, at 309 Old Colony Avenue? It's no coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go, the selfish man in his day. Let me buy a stack of lottery tickets for myself. Okay? How is he conforming his conduct? Does he just jump over the counter and push Mr. Ayoun aside, Ghazi Ayoun? Does he push him aside and say, like, I'm just going to run out and take all these lottery tickets? No, he pays for them. You saw these transactions. He's able to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law. He's demonstrating that. He's giving you insight. You're seeing it. You're seeing his behavior that day. And this is the selfish man right here. Exhibit 78. The selfish man spending her money on lottery tickets. I can't take care of myself. He's a person who can't take care of himself, who's so compromised, who's in such a state psychotically that he's ill, he's sick, but he can buy those lottery tickets and he can scratch them And you know where Amy Lord is at the time, right? Everybody does. Alone. Unclad. On the ground. What's he doing? Indifferent. I never feel guilty about anything. I have no remorse for anything. Another transaction, okay? Rotary Variety, exhibits 180. Another purchase for himself. Edwin's going to be good to Edwin today. I'm buying a new 4G phone. I'm going to negotiate that transaction. That's what we're doing today. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to be the big spender. I'm going to bring my girlfriend's account up to date. I'm going to bring my friend's account up to date. And I'm even going to pay this guy's transfer fee. Is he reaching in and taking the phone? No. He knows what he's doing. He's buying a phone. This guy's just acting with total clarity of mind all day. It's not lack of criminal responsibility. No mental disease or defect. None. Okay? Psychiatric history? Yes. Issues? Yes. Lots of people have issues. Lots of people have psychiatric histories. Not lots of people go on crime sprees and murder people. And that's why he's here. Okay. What about that? What about Shihar Patel? What about Mr. Patel? Okay. When he came from Rotary Liquors to Rotary Variety to buy his cell phone. Which time do I have now?
We'll get 15 minutes.
What does he do? What does he do? If it wasn't such a serious case, it would be almost comical. But he takes a nip out of his pocket. Takes a nip out of his pocket that I suggest you can infer he bought from Rotary Liquors. And he takes that nip out and he starts drinking it right in Rotary Variety in front of Mr. Patel. And Mr. Patel says, "You can't do that." Okay? What was the response? He put it away. And he continued the transaction. Did he steal cell phones? Did he walk off with it? No. What is he doing? The selfish man is, again, spending more of Amy Lord's hard-earned money. There he is, counting it at the counter 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. It's not my money. Edwin's going to be good to Edwin today. He has the capacity to conform his conduct. You heard argument, well, no one would behave this way, no one would behave this way if they had just committed these brutal attacks. It's so out of character, it's so beyond the pale. You can't, yeah, you can. You heard the diagnosis, you heard the criteria for antisocial personality disorder. One of the criteria is lack of remorse. Bridgewater State Hospital, I never feel guilty. I have no remorse about anything. Okay? What does he care? He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. And what does he do after that? He goes home, he makes his purchase, he makes his way out of the Rotary Variety, he's heading home, he's going to change, and Edwin Alemany has a good day planned for himself. Oh yeah, it's not stopping there. Okay? I never feel guilty and I have no remorse about anything. What am I doing? I'm going to call the livery service. I have no problem in my statement recalling that particular number to the livery service. And I'm taking a car ride, I'm taking a Lincoln Town Car back to where I just came from. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to be the big spender, and I'm showing up at my pal's house, Eric Cataloni's, with a case of Corona. Sure. Right there. Boom. Does that look like someone who's depressed? Does that look like someone who doesn't have clarity of mind, ladies and gentlemen? Right back to the cooler. Get myself a nice case of Corona long necks. head back to the counter. What do people do when they're in a liquor store and they're making a purchase? They don't walk out with a box of beers. No, they pay for it. That's what law-abiding people do. They pay for their purchases. That's what Mr. Alemany's doing right here. And he's executing another transaction just like he executed. And where is Amy Lord right now? Where is Amy Lord right now? You know where she is. Bolton Path, alone and unclad in the woods. And where's the defendant going? Well, you know where he's going. He's going to Liz Street to meet up with Eric Cataloni and the defendant's brother, Jose Alemany. And an afternoon of drinking starts at that particular location, at Liz Street. And you know what the plan was, folks. The plan from there at some point was, let's go where we've gone in the past. Let's go to the Tahiti Lounge. Let's get some food. Let's get some food starting at about 3 o'clock or whatever time it was, 3:20. Go to the Tahiti Lounge. Beyond any doubt, you know who was there that day. You know it was Jose Alemany. You know it was Edwin Alemany, the defendant, and you know it was Eric Cataloni. Okay? What's going on there? I'm going to be the big shot, the big spender. Okay? I'm treating. Let's get poo-poo platters and suffering bastards. Let's continue the party. Okay? Let's do that. Spending more of Amy Lord's hard-earned money. Now at the Tahiti. When is it enough for Mr. Alemany? When? When does it stop? Okay? Not a care in the world. Why? I never feel guilty. I have no remorse about anything. Okay? That video you saw, we scrolled through it. Look at the whole thing from start to finish if you want to. Give it its due consideration, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Cataloni testified in this case. He's known the defendant for years. He's known him for years. Okay? 10 years, 15 years, your memory controls. What does he say about the defendant, Edwin Alemany, on July 23rd of 2013? Nothing different about him that day. Nothing different. We were drinking. We got drunk. Has kind of a common refrain to it, if you recall Elizabeth Stevenson's testimony, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. Are those the pictures from Tedeschi's, from Rotary, from Nick's, from Tahiti? Okay. Are those the pictures of, or the videos of a wandering, delusional, sick, depressed person, or are those the pictures, the videos of a person who's acting with purpose, acting with clarity of mind, knows what he's doing, and has antisocial personality disorder? The criteria, again, ladies and gentlemen, fit him like a glove. Bridgewater State Hospital, Dr. Martin Kelly. Okay? And what is the selfish man doing right now? What is the selfish man doing in exhibit number 92, ladies and gentlemen? Okay? He's had his fill, he's had his spare ribs, his chicken fingers, okay? He's had his suffering bastards, okay? What's he doing right at about the time that Amy Lord is discovered? Okay? He's stuffing his face. That's what he's doing. The selfish man. Okay? That's Edwin J. Alemany. Okay? That's what he's doing. And that wasn't enough either. That wasn't enough either. Okay? After the Tahiti, okay? After he's eating and leaving with that doggy bag, after a huge response is descending on the Stony Brook Reservation, where does he go? He goes back with Eric Cataloni. They go back to Liz Street. Okay? That's what they do. Okay? They go back there, and what do? They start drinking some more. They start drinking some more, and they start lighting off fireworks that night. Okay? Start lighting off fireworks that night. What are Cindy and Dennis Lord doing that night? What are they doing that night? You know what they're doing. They've come in from Wilbraham. They're scratching and clawing for every shred of information that they can get about their daughter who's gone missing. Okay? Teetering on the brink, waiting, hoping, praying for good news. And you know the devastating news they got that night. That excruciatingly painful news that was delivered by Detectives Sheehan and Cecil. And as their world became unglued and blown apart, what is the selfish man doing at that moment? He's drinking beers and lighting fireworks off in Rosendale. Why? Because he's the guy that has no remorse and doesn't feel guilty about anything. That's what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's going on. You know, Nick's Liquors, Tahiti. Is that really the picture of a sick man? The video that has been assembled and presented to you, the testimony that you've heard, is that the snapshot of a sick man? That's the snapshot of a selfish man. That's what that is. Who's doing what he does and what selfish people do to serve their own self-interest, to take care of themselves.
So, you get to beef with your girl, right?
Yeah.
So you go to his gas station, pick up a pack of cigarettes, and then the dude stabbed you.
So you give him a change or a bottle, whatever you ask him for, I'll say it either. It's observation.
How often do you fight with your girl?
Not a lot.
Not a lot?
No.
Are you home a lot?
Yeah. Most of the time in the house.
Most of the time at the house? What was your mood like when you left the house after you got into a fight?
I was a little aggravated, but I was walking.
What?
I was a little aggravated, but I left to go with the smokes and calm down, and then
What aggravated you?
just I heard yelling at me and stuff, screaming.
She got on you?
And I was drunk.
Were you drunk, or was there a little bit more to the argument?
I was drunk. Sleep.
What was she saying to get you to leave that got you so aggravated?
She told me to leave. She said, oh, we got the baby's appointment today. Supposed to get the baby's appointment today at Children's. And she said, oh, you fucking, you had the appointment, you was drinking that to ease with your brother Harry. But why don't you just go back to Harry's house? Why don't you just sleep? And I was like, whatever. And when I got up, she slammed the phone. And I walked to the gas station. And I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital. We told her that I just stabbed my hand.
Another story, another lie, acting in his own self-interest, traumatic or stressful event, can't remember anything about it later, hours after it occurred, making up excuses, giving accounts that are have no basis in fact whatsoever, but showing that he's strategizing, ladies and gentlemen. Showing that, again, he's acting in his own self-interest, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Not lack of criminal responsibility, okay? Acting with purpose, acting with clarity of mind, self-preservation. I'm going to try and do what I need to do not to get caught here. When that interview's taking place, he has no idea what the state of the evidence is. He has no idea we have video from Telegraph Street. He has no idea we have video from Domino's or Hess or Tufts Medical Center. He has no idea that Kaylee Ballantyne stabbed repeatedly coming home from work, the third of the 3 victims. He has no idea that she's going to be taken to Tufts Medical Center. None. Zero. How does he know that? Fate. That's all that was. That's all that was. Corroboration of the argument. The smashed phone set him off. Why was the girlfriend mad? Elizabeth Stevenson. You know why she was mad. A familiar pattern playing out over and over. I'm going out. The contact with Ashley Paradella. I don't know why. The evidence doesn't show why he didn't attack her. Maybe it was because she had 2 dogs. Maybe it was because right at about that time, his girlfriend was circling the block in the gray Chevy Impala that Miss Paradella saw. Kaylee Ballantyne, not so lucky. Not so lucky. Stabbed repeatedly. Lucky she didn't lose her life? Yes. Edwin Alemany. I never feel guilty about anything. I have no remorse. Does he have to be running from the scene? Okay. Today is June 5th of 2015, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 2 years since this defendant committed these blitz-style attacks. Almost 2 years since he brutally took Amy Lord's life. Okay? And it's still not enough for Edwin Alemany. It's not enough for him. It's not enough to be the defendant. He also has to be the victim in this case. Okay? How many women have to be attacked for it to be enough? How many? Okay. How many women have to be stabbed for it to be enough? How many? Okay? It wasn't enough just to rob Amy Lord of her money, of her hard-earned money. Okay? When is it enough for Edwin Alemany? 10 stab wounds? 20? 30? Do you need me to keep going? Today it's enough, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard enough about Edwin J. Alemany. And you have all the evidence you need to return guilty verdicts on each and every indictment. Thank you.
I just need to give you a supplemental instruction regarding the closing argument. We have certain rules for what can be said and not said in closing arguments. To the extent there was a reference to Mr. and Mrs. York, I just ask you to focus on the testimony by Mrs. Ward on the stand, not anything else. Secondly, it's appropriate to have this certainly argue the effects conduct in this case, so you have to focus on the effects conduct. It's inappropriate appropriate to label the offense conduct as prejudicial terms. So I'd ask you to disregard the story of life, disregard those and focus on the offense conduct, not the labels. That's included.
Do you have a set for me? Do you have a set for me? No. Do you have one extra set? We only got one. I'll share. I'll share.
You now have a copy of what I'm going to read to you, so you can follow along, and you have a look to the jury. To the extent, I don't intend to deviate from it, but to the extent that deviate the spoken word governs on the printed word, I intend to read it word for word. We're now at the stage of the trial of this case where it's my responsibility to give instructions concerning the law. The instructions are divided into three parts. General instructions provided in every criminal case, specific instructions concern the crimes alleged in this case, and guidelines for your deliberations. Let me start off with your function. You will determine the facts in this case, and that's your function and your function alone. You are the sole and exclusive judges of the facts. If there are any conflicts in the testimony, it's your function to resolve those conflicts and to determine where the truth lies. Once you determine the facts, it is your duty to apply those facts to the law as I explained it to you. You must determine the facts solely and entirely based upon the evidence you see and heard in this courtroom and nothing else. No bias, no prejudice, no fear, no favor. You're not to be swayed by personal likes or dislikes. Emotion, sympathy, passion, or prejudice have no place in your deliberations. The Commonwealth and Mr. Alemany have a right to have this case judged by fair and impartial jurors. You cannot allow yourself to be influenced by any personal feelings you have about the nature of the crimes with which the defendant has been charged or the consequences of your verdict. Just the cool, reflective, and impartial sifting of the evidence so here in this courtroom justice may be done. Your focus is on the evidence. I'm the judge of the law. My job is to teach you the law that you must follow in this case. You must take the law as I give it to you. You may not quarrel with it. You can't do so regardless of any personal opinion you have or what the law ought to be. Please bear in mind, listen to my entire set of instructions. All are equally important, so please do not single any out and ignore others. Now, since you're the judge of the facts in this case, we're pleased to have you discharge your function. What are sources of evidence in this case? First is the testimony of the witnesses. The number of witnesses who have been called is not important. You've had a chance to listen to each of them, to observe them, to consider all of what they said and how they said it. You must decide what weight, if any, to give their testimony. The testimony of a police officer is not entitled to any greater or lesser weight simply because the witness is a police officer. You may not assume a police officer is telling the truth, just as you may not assume a police officer is not telling the truth simply because he's a police officer. As jurors, you have very broad powers with respect to the testimony of any witness. You may believe everything a witness said to you on the witness stand. Likewise, you may disbelieve and disregard the testimony of any witness as though that witness never appeared. Between those two positions, you may believe part of what a witness said and disbelieve other parts. You have the complete authority to decide what you believe and what weight you think the testimony deserves. Now, how do you go about making these critically impeached by